D&D Show Studios. This is your Ghostman and Demon Hunter show.
Doesn't that sound exciting to you?
Hey, welcome back, Shadow Nation, to the one, the only, mystifying Oracle Radio, your Ghostman and Demon Hunter show, Demon Hunter.
Oh, the noise, the hangover.
Oh, it's so loud at night after a party. Special thanks to all our homes, all our sponsors, Action Audio Apps. Hey, are you listening? They want to know, so check them out at actionaudioapps.com. Stitcher Smart Radio, Planet Paranormal, the SYL Project. Give some love, share some love today. Go check them out. Help them out, guys. The SYLproject.com. Yeah, Sunday night.
Sunday night.
Yeah, All Saints Day.
Yes, sir.
It is All Saints Day.
Today is All Saints Day. Tomorrow is All Souls Day.
All Souls Day. I did get that right then. Okay, well.
Which was, the original Catholic Church's way of trying to get rid of Halloween.
Well, yeah, it didn't work. They picked the wrong day. They should have did it on October 31st if that's how they were trying to eliminate it. You don't try to get, rid of Christmas on the 26th.
Well, Christmas was to get rid of the solstice parties. The solstice celebration, which was on the 21st.
Celebration. You just had a big Halloween party, man. What happened? Big bash last night.
I don't remember any of it. It was it's all a blur.
Lots of beverages.
It was fun. It was great. Yeah. Nothing like getting together for Halloween. I think next year somebody else has to throw the party.
Yeah, that's always funner.
Yes. You know the feeling, sir. You know how expensive it gets to throw a major party.
Yeah, when I seen the bills, I was like, "Are you kidding me? Why did we buy that? I don't even know where it's at right now."
And it's always that last minute stuff. You go out and you're like, you've already done all the shopping, but like yesterday, I had to go out and I had to buy ice.
Oh yeah. I
had to buy ice, so I go out and I buy ice, and it's 5 bags for $8. Okay, it's off season, whatever. I grab 5 bags of ice. And I'm driving back, and I see a little balloon store, and I'm like, well, some of these people don't know where our house is. I should hang balloons at the bottom of the driveway. So I buy balloons, and then while I'm in there buying balloons, oh, look at this. They have really cool Halloween coasters.
Oh, yeah. And it keeps going and going, just like my wife's dad always says, you can go broke off good deals. And when you're walking through the aisle at the Walmart or wherever, you see all these, hey, man, it's only $7 for this whole pack of whatever, and you're thinking, oh, man, that'd be so cool.
My wife does that to us all the time. She'll say that, which one? That she would go to Kohl's. That was the name of the store I was trying to remember. Not Kohl's. No, we would never use the name of a store. On the show.
We'll call it Bowls.
She would go to Coils, and she would go in there, and we'll bleep that out later in the mix.
Yeah.
But she'd go in and she'd buy like 5 outfits and come back and say, yeah, I spent $200, but they normally would have cost $500, so I really saved us $300.
Okay.
So I'm like, no, you did not.
No, you wouldn't, because if you would have spent that much, extra $300, we'd have been broke. Now we're not. It took us right to the verge. No, that's how they do it. And the party, man, hosting at your house. The good part is you can tumble upstairs and go to bed. Now, how do you deal with stragglers at the party? We had a couple, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever. They're still sitting out there, and you're like, man, I got to go. Let me tell you how I do it. Want me to tell you how I do it first?
Sure.
Usually, at the bash, after the illusionist went off stage, people are done dancing, you're looking at 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, I go up to the people, if it's 3 a.m. or after, and I just say, guys, I'm beat. The keg's over there. Turn the lights off on your way out, and that's that. So I think it's all good doing it like that. I mean, that's the best way to do it instead of saying get the heck out.
Sure. I as for the way I deal with stragglers, there are still a few downstairs. I kid you not.
They spent the night, huh?
Yeah. Well, we had several spend the night, and I don't mind that. I'd rather, I live in the middle of the woods. You've been here. And between my house and most of everybody else's house, there's a town. Uh-huh. So you would have to leave my house, drive through the woods, drive through town, and then drive through your suburban area to get back home.
Yeah.
And if people have been drinking, I would rather them crash on the floor. We have people who bring their own air beds.
Yeah, that's cool.
We've got the one guest room upstairs, and then we've got a couple sofas. But if they're gonna come, I'd rather them bring an air bed or something, crash on the floor or a sofa, and then drive home drunk. So.
Well, usually the day after, I learned a lot more, this being our second year of the huge bash we throw here at the Ghostman side of the studio. And like I said, we had about 110 party goers that attended this year, maybe a little over that. And with so many people, and me and Stacy to run it, the wife and I, by the end of the night, we were thinking, God, did we get everything out? The one thing we wanted to do this year was the Halloween contest, because we bought trophies. And
Right.
And last year we went through it, and we went back inside, and we're like, man, we forgot about something. And all these baskets with wine in them and stuff were laid out there. We didn't give anything out. Did anything like that happen to you?
No, I think we actually did the Halloween costume contest this year.
Yeah.
And we forgot it last year. But we did it this year. We had 4 prizes, and everybody got a prize. We rated our own DVD stuff. Found everything that we had. Chrissy and I had as doubles, where she had one and I had one.
Oh no!
And we took out the horror movies and stuff like that, and we gave away prizes to everybody. That everybody got a prize, but the big winners, the 4 big winners, got like a nice package. We had stuff like, an Alfred Hitchcock package and a found footage package,
Right.
and, classic horror movie package.
Well, yeah. I was gonna say I didn't know it was that type of party. Nice package.
Yeah, well,
Those are fun, I hear. You guys dress up like teddy bears and everything.
oh yeah.
Well, you got the woods up there. I seen your
the
pumpkins.
furries.
Yeah, your pumpkins were real nice. Those were nice.
Oh, I put a lot of work in those pumpkins. And,
Plus, you guys don't have any trick-or-treaters, so you didn't have to worry about that.
That's true. And of course, I'm sure people will see the pictures on Facebook, so it'll all be out there tomorrow. But, this year for Halloween, Chrissy went as Anna from Frozen,
Yeah.
and she didn't want to do it alone, so I went as Elsa.
Did you really?
I did.
I'm his co-host, guys. I didn't even get this. This is insider information. I'm just hearing this for the first time.
She was saying she ordered the dress, and she had said she didn't want to do it alone, so I went down and bought the Elsa dress, and I didn't try it on in the store. I admit that.
That's great, man. That's great. Did you wear the wig and everything?
I did the whole deal.
That's cool, man. I had, I'm sure if you went on our Facebook page, I put some on our Ghostman&Demon Hunter show page. I put the UFO ship out front that had crashed.
Oh yes, I that was awesome.
In the fog, and I had Alien Bob standing in the door. And it's always a big win for Halloween for me if the kids come up and you hear them go, "No, I don't want to go." So I knew I won right away. The kids were great, man. We only had probably about 30, so. But still, they had a good Halloween. Everybody was safe and
I
happy.
get none, man. And you see, but my house is half a mile out in the middle of the woods. I mean, parents would have to drive their kids out here to trick or treat. So.
The location of your home is the location that parents warn their children about in nursery rhymes and stuff.
Do not walk down the dark path alone at night.
Yeah, because still, once you go off the road, if you even know your home's there, back towards the studio, you got to walk. You got to walk at least 50 yards, I think, something like that.
Yep, and of course, next year Halloween will not fall on a weekend.
Yeah, that's what I heard. What a
It's,
bummer. What a bummer.
Yep, it's gonna be a Monday.
Oh, terrific. Yeah. Well, we'll probably have it on a weekend anyway. You know how they change that up a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
well, they'll probably host it on Saturday or whatever.
yeah.
But.
Anyway, guys, listen out there in Shadow Nations. Tell us what you did for Halloween. Share your pictures with us on our Facebook page and our Twitter account, Ghostman&Demon Hunter Show. We'd love to hear from you. Love to see what you did. Let us know. Anyway, Demon Hunter, before we go on.
Wait, Sean, one other thing. Before you go there, if you're not already following us on Facebook, you can find our Facebook page by going to the www.ghostanddemon.com page. Click on Join the Shadow Nation at the top, and it will take you right to the Ghostman&Demon Hunter Facebook page. So.
Bazinga. That's it right there. Anyway, without further delay, and before we forget, tonight's guest. Ooh.
Spooky music.
It is spooky music. I don't know if I got it turned up loud enough. You think I do? Gotta have it. Anyway.
I hear it.
Yeah, you can hear it. I don't know where to go. I'm lost here. Anyway, guys, tonight's guest is the state section director for the Los Angeles chapter of MUFON. She's the granddaughter of the U.S. Army Colonel Jesse Marcel Sr., whose involvement with the 1947 controversial case known as Roswell would lead her into a life of passion for unexplained aerial phenomena, and to educate and bring truth to all those seeking answers to Are We Alone in the Universe?
Are we?
I don't know. Tonight's guest, Denice Marcel, is going to be here in studio, guys. She's going to tell us she was not only the granddaughter to Jesse Marcel Sr., but her father was Jesse Marcel Jr. Now, you might know Jesse had co-authored the book The Roswell Legacy, Nathan, where he goes on, and he was actually the 11 years old when his father, Jesse Marcel Sr., brought home the pieces from the crashed ship that they said had folded when they tried to bring him out.
Correct. I do remember
him.
watching that on the History Channel.
Yeah, so they actually held these things in their hands, and she was, she's one of the last in the family that continues on the legacy of her father and her grandfather. Tonight, only at the home of the Mystifying Oracle Radio, Roswell, your Ghostman&Demon Hunter show.
Now, do you suppose, Sean, that, Roswell is that government's conspiracy that everybody says is the big deal? It's the real thing. It's like trying to get into Area 51. You can't get the truth about what really happened. Do you think if we actually, find the truth out about that, we're in danger?
Well, we've been in danger many times on this show by the topics. I mean, we've had human-alien hybrids uncovered on this show, government conspiracies of all types. I don't know. I don't think we would be in... Stephen Bassett came on. He did the disclosure.
That's true.
Citizens
That's
hearing.
true. Of course, I did get followed after that one.
Did you really?
Isn't that the one I got followed by the folks from Utah?
No. That was Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, that was Skinwalker Ranch. Yes.
Yeah, Skinwalker Ranch. We did that out there, guys. And Nathan was followed by Men in Black. Family in Black.
Family in Black.
Family
I
in
think
Black.
the child had some really black eyes.
Yeah. Even the baby had a black onesie.
Oh, man, I just said that. I said the child had really black eyes, and a photo popped up on my screen as I was saying it. That famous, child in the water with the black eyes staring up at people.
See? That's what you get, buddy.
It's scary.
Yeah, but even today, man, if you look up the Roswell UFO incident on Google, it says the description underneath that is mid-1947, a United States Air Force surveillance balloon crashed at a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico, prompting claims alleging the crash was of an extraterrestrial spaceship. So, see, even to the day, a lot of things have changed, because I know about 10 years ago, at least, you could look that up. And, of course, certainly several places you can look it up, and it'll give you different definitions of what happened. But they've gotten to Google. They've infiltrated Google. What are we going to do, man? It's at the highest levels.
Do you still remember going to the library as a kid, in the school library, and the first thing you always went to was the paranormal and UFO section?
Absolutely, which was like one row.
Yeah, it was one row at the bottom of a shelf.
Usually in the children's aisle.
And you'd go and you'd take the book off and you'd take it up to the school librarian to pay for it. And, of course, you'd get the dirtiest look.
Yeah, because you were an occultist. Did you ever go to school with kids that were different, maybe? Not different, but, of course, we're all different, but into the occult angle of things? I did, too.
And the really funny thing was, because even in my high school years, being a Bible student who kind of found his way into occult studies, I'd have people who were claimed to be Satanists, but they really weren't, coming and asking me questions.
Right.
Even in high school. So that was always interesting.
Well, I know that, I went to school, and I've said this story. I've told it before in here. I know I have, but I sat in front of a girl she was very different. Well, I mean, not weird different. She just wouldn't talk. Kind of like Carrie. Yeah, so I guess it was a little different, strange, but like the movie Carrie, if you guys remember the Stephen King novel in the movie that was based off of. Very quiet to herself. She dressed long sweaters, long black dresses and stuff. And I remember a lot of the kids made fun of her. I didn't because I was new to the school. But
You don't know who to make fun of at that point.
yeah, I didn't know what side to get on. But, they would laugh at her and giggle and everything. And I don't think I've ever heard her. I couldn't even tell you her name now. I think she left the school not long after this happened. But I was sitting in front of her in study hall. And I remember the guy in front of me, big heavy set guy, kept picking on her and picking on her. He was saying something about ghosts and demons and stuff like that. And she kept real quiet. And I remember the teacher kept telling him to shut up, be quiet. And he kept saying, spooky this and this is spooky and do this or whatever. So somehow I got in the crossfires. So I remember I raised my hand and I told the teacher I had asked if I could go to the restroom. Well, right as I raised my hand, I know I've told you this. You remember this?
Oh, yeah, I know this story.
She had touched the top of my head with her hand. I don't know if she was trying to get up or she was doing it intentionally or trying to reach the guy in front of me, but I felt her hand on the top of my head. And I remember looking around at her because I thought, why'd she grab my head? And I never forget, it felt like just a small zap. I know it sounds funny, guys, and I know it's hard to believe, but it felt like some kind of energy zap, like you would shock yourself touching the doorknob in the fall. And seconds after that, my nose gushed blood everywhere. I mean, it was just, I had the worst nosebleed. To this day, I don't know what to think of it. I came back, she was still there, but I think a couple months after that, her family moved or she transferred or something or went to a different school or class or whatever. I don't know. But I always thought that was weird. I had lots of things happen like that. I had one kid that was going to get beat up by this football guy that was on the football team with me. And he said that he put a curse on him and that demons were going to destroy him or come and get him or something. So I was always involved in that, man. I remember going and reading everything I could. Even that was middle school. When I was a kid growing up in the haunted house, I read everything I could. But yeah, those little experiences, it's weird the things you run into.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it's those experiences that held us on to this field for all these years, because I know it was one experience that I had where somebody came to me and asked me for help because I already, like I said, I was known for the guy who studied this stuff.
Yeah.
And, I didn't get back to him, and he, died.
Really? You didn't tell me about that.
And for the sake of the family members that were involved with that, I don't talk about the aspects of the death, but, that put me on the path that I'm on because that person passed away. And maybe if I had been better at what I did or knew more or whatever, I could have helped them. And that put me on my path.
Well, there you go. Everything has to lead to something, right?
Hey, Sean, did you ever watch the movie Bull Durham?
I did. Yeah, absolutely. Meat. Yeah.
Yes, Meat. You remember there's a scene in there where the girl's talking about her past life and she says she was probably a queen or Joan of Arc. And he says, why isn't anybody ever just like Joe Schmo?
Yeah.
And why is everybody always famous in a past life? And
Right.
they laugh about it and say that's the way it works. Well, apparently there's some famous people who aren't going to come back because they're still haunting their own old homes.
No way.
Apparently there's 8 famous hauntings from celebrities.
All right, let's hear it.
Starting with Errol Flynn.
Errol Flynn.
You know Flynn,
Yeah.
the original Hollywood bad boy in the 1940s, lived in a lavish apartment in the Hollywood Hills in 1959. Flynn's hard playing was caught up with him when he died. And then, after that, for a while, signs of paranormal activity in his home were reported all the time.
Okay.
But in the 1980s, it started getting weird. The new owner's daughter reported that all sorts of ghostly happenings were happening, and they thought it could be Flynn's ghost from beyond the grave.
Okay.
How about this one? We all remember this guy, or at least I do. I watched this on Saturday mornings when I was a kid. But George Reeves.
Oh, yeah. Superman
Superman
died under mysterious causes, right? Yeah.
1950s TV series. I didn't watch the originals, folks. I watched it on reruns.
Was he
my
shot?
Dad, I know. I think he was shot, but there was the whole alcoholism aspect of his lifestyle too.
Right,
That was
yeah.
a big deal. But not long after his death, the new owners who purchased his home reported all sorts of sounds coming from Reeves' bedroom.
Okay.
A documentary crew during a film of Reeves' life even claimed that they'd seen his spirit walking in the full Superman costume.
Oh.
Now, from my memory, he didn't like being Superman all that much. That's why he drank. So why would he stick around as
Maybe
Superman?
he was in hell. That was his
Oh, that could be.
punishment.
That could be.
You don't know.
Al Capone.
Think outside the box, bud.
Think,
Capone.
think outside the pine box.
That's it.
Al Capone. Many people don't know that Al Capone was actually an avid banjo player.
Oh.
Didn't know that, did you?
No, I did not.
It said that Capone's spirit still haunts his cell in Alcatraz, and the guards at the prison have reported during their shifts that they hear banjo music coming from Capone's former cell.
That's got to be a lonely place to haunt.
Ooh, well, if it's not lonely, it's really scary, because imagine having to be there with other criminals in your afterlife.
Right. So let me get this. So not only is this a haunting, haunted by a ghost, it's haunted by a banjo picking mob boss. Well, okay. Yeah.
You know, it's bad enough, like being in prison, but
Come on,
then you hear the
Stephen.
banjos on top of it. Now you're really in trouble.
Right. Stephen King needs to pick that up quick. Yeah.
So Lucille Ball.
Oh yeah, I seen her house in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. She passed away in 1989. She left behind her a great legacy, but according to the new owners of the home, interesting paranormal activity is the norm. For example, they say that often loud voices can be heard from the attic, and there are parties going on up there. So Lucille's still holding the parties.
Lucy.
Lucy,
That's
you
what
got
the
some
voice-
explaining to do.
That's what
Marilyn
it said.
Monroe, Sean. Marilyn's ghost
Go ahead.
is one of the big stories of Hollywood. Since her suicide in 1962, Marilyn's ghost has been spotted at her former home and at her tomb at the Westwood Memorial Cemetery, and even in a full-length Hollywood Roosevelt at the full-length mirror at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel.
Okay.
So she gets around still. She got around when she was alive. She's still getting around.
Well, there you go. Yeah, she can get around here as long as she still looks the same.
Yeah.
I don't want her to call gross.
Mary Pickford.
Okay.
I don't know who Mary Pickford really
heard
was,
that
but
name.
apparently she was a celebrity in the 1920s.
Okay.
And her second husband moved into an allegedly haunted mansion where they lived until her death in 1979. Not long after that, the hauntings of the house increased. Her husband believes that her spirit is what he kept seeing. The historic mansion has since been demolished. What happens to a ghost when the house gets demolished, Sean?
Well, they always told us since day one of ghosting school that there's more haunted property than there is haunted places.
This is true. This is true. Hey, how about Elvis Presley, Sean?
Hey, let's do it.
That's ridiculous. Elvis isn't dead.
No, I know. It's crazy. He would have to be dead first.
Yeah.
To haunt anything.
So the conspiracy aside, the fact that if he's dead, that would explain why there are reports of Elvis's spirit being seen up in the new home in Nashville.
Okay.
Building where the record Heartbreak Hotel was originally recorded. These days, the space is occupied by television producing companies. Well, if anyone deserves haunting, we know they do. Allegedly, every time someone mentions the name Elvis, the paranormal activity begins.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. Do you got anything else? Because we're at 7:26. I know we went to hit on.
Okay, let's just say the last one was Rudolph Valentino, Loverboy himself. His ghost still haunts his home, and visitors visiting the home have even announced seeing him hanging out in the Paramount Studios as well. So, sorry about that, brother. I found this and I wanted to get it out there. It's still, for me, it's Halloween, and
That's
I needed
good.
to talk ghosts.
Me too, man. We're going through that post, Halloween depression thing, man. You used to tell from the American Scream. But I wanted to say real quick before we go into that. We'll never badmouth another paranormal type team on here. We know how much stress it is to have your own television show. We had one, Extreme Paranormal, back in 2010, guys, on A&E. And we vowed never to try to put down other investigators. Now, the Tennessee Wraith Chasers did a brilliant marketing for Destination America. Exorcism Live on Friday night. Did you see this?
I did not watch it because I was doing other Halloween preparation stuff, but I've been reading up on it and watching clips ever since.
Yeah, I watched clips because when you've done it as much as us, we usually don't tune into that stuff. But what's your impression on the clips?
Well, that's the problem with doing something live, folks. And this is the problem with working on something with producers when you're doing something live. Because when you're doing something live and nothing happens, people start turning the channel.
Yeah. Well,
so if you're not going to get any activity from the living or from the dead, the producers are going to want it from the living. So that's my impression on it so far.
Okay. Well, like I said, we'll never badmouth anybody. It's a lot of hard work out there.
And we're not even bad-mouthing the producers. This is just the way television works.
No, absolutely. But with that said, all I'm going to say is brilliant marketing, Destination America.
Yes.
Brilliant marketing. It worked for you. I hope it all worked out. It was a spooky little thing. Of course, I seen the regulars get involved. There's a group of brothers that seem to show up every chance they can on certain things that... Anyway.
Hey, brother, we've got only a couple minutes left. You want to take a couple minutes to talk about our favorite TV show?
In the end, guys, Catholic Church will not approve a exorcism of a person, but a home. There you go. Brilliant marketing. Moving on. That's right. You hear the music. You know what time it is, guys. It's that time of the week. Well, we missed it last week. That time of the week called Rot Talk.
Rot Talk.
Where each week we talk about that show we know we love and what's going to happen tonight on The Walking Dead. Nathan, last week, Glenn.
Wait. Spoiler alert, folks. You have 3 seconds to stop right now and fast forward about 3 minutes if you don't want to hear what happened last week on The Walking Dead.
1, 2, 3. Too late!
Go.
Okay, Glenn and Nicholas were on top of a dumpster. The whole world's wondering because at the end, Nick shot himself, fell off the dumpster with Glenn beside him. At the end, they cut away. Guts are being ripped out. Glenn appears to be in agony. Is he dead? Go.
I really think that he is in agony. I think if you took a fall like that, you'd be hurt. I immediately thought that, Nick was lying on top of him, and those are the guts we start seeing. But then again, the folks at Walking Dead do have no problem whatsoever killing off anyone and anything. We've learned that so far. And let's face it, folks, if you're a fan of the show, don't stop watching because your favorite character died. My favorite characters have been killed off twice, and I keep watching.
All right, that's it, guys. We're going to close it out
Hey,
real
what
quick.
about you, brother? What do you think?
That's what I was going to say. That's it. What Nathan thinks, what I'm thinking is Glenn does survive. One, case in point, afterwards on The Talking Dead, they did not say goodbye to our buddy.
I don't take that as a clue.
They did not say goodbye to our buddy Glenn. That would be a first time ever that they put a gigantic question mark on The Talking Dead over a person's name. So, yeah, like Nathan said, you can clearly see on the dumpster when Steven goes down on top of Glenn that he's on top of him. So, yeah, he's freaking out. The guts are being ripped out right on top of him. And as we all know...
He might even have broken bones.
Yeah, might have a broken bone. How's he going to get out of it? That's what I'm asking. But Glenn is alive, and I think he goes on to, live until Negan shows up.
Well,
Bang, bang.
somebody else was putting up one of those big things about, he's not dead because it's not following the comic book. Folks, if you've been following the show, it doesn't follow the comic book.
That's true.
But, hey, Sean, I'm sorry. I had to ramble on about that an extra minute.
We got to. Guys, tonight's guest, stick around because Denice Marcel stops by. She's the state director for the Los Angeles chapter of MUFON. She's the granddaughter of U.S. Army Colonel Jesse Marcel Sr., which has been involved since day one in the Roswell case in 1947. She spends her life trying to spread truth and light to all those seeking the answers. Are we alone in the universe? She stops by tonight, only right here on the Mystifying Home of the Oracle Radio, your Ghostman and Demon Hunter show. Anyway, each week we play independent band, one we know we love. This week's band, Cletus Got Shot. Name of this song, Gravedigger. Demon Hunter.
Ghostman.
Shadow Nation. We'll be right back.
Well, if you are the gravedigger, who's gonna dig your grave? Well, if you are the gravedigger, who's gonna dig broken down? Well, have you lost your job? Are you poor? Are you broken down? Come on, all you workers, sing along with me. Yodelay. Come on, all you workers, sing along with me. Well, I once met a man who lost his hand working for the man. Well, I once met a man who lost his hand working for the man. Well, if that was you, you're gonna have to choose a better plan. Are you working hard for a cause that you can't stand? Well, are you working hard for a cause that you can't stand? Then come on, all you workers, sing along with me. Yodelay. Come on, all you workers, sing along with me. I got one more thing to say before I leave this stage. I got one more thing to say before I leave this stage. It's time we all make a stand. Fight for our fellow man. Well, come on, all you workers, and sing along with me. Yodelay. Come on, all you workers, sing along with me. Well, come on, all you workers, sing along with me.
Hey, it's Don Wildman from Mysteries at the Museum on Travel Channel, and you're listening to the Ghostman and Demon Hunter Show.
Hey, welcome back, Shadow Nation, to the one, the only mystifying Oracle of Radio, your Ghostman and Demon Hunter show. Tonight's guest is the state section director for the Los Angeles chapter of MUFON. She's the granddaughter of U.S. Army Colonel Jesse Marcel Sr., whose involvement with the 1947 controversial case known as Roswell would lead her into a life of passion for the unexplained aerial phenomena and to educate and bring truth to all those seeking answers to Are We Alone in the Universe? Please help us welcome, Shadow Nation, to studio, Miss Denice Marcel. Denice, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. What a great entry.
Well, thank you. I researched it hard.
Yes, you did.
Well, thanks so much for coming by tonight. Did you have a great trick-or-treat Halloween?
I did. We got dressed up at work and did that. But we don't. Where I live is we live in a little condo, and so really no kids come back to see us. So, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah, you can get by without the little kids coming raiding your candy bowl. We had about 50 last night. It was good. But, you know, we got you on here tonight. And what I said in your intro is, without a doubt, you just can't argue against the fact that this is so controversial. I mean, I was telling everybody on the show earlier, we looked up the Roswell incident, and it even says in 1947, basically breaking it down, people thought it was an alien ship, but it wasn't. It was just a balloon. So
they got to Google, Denice. How did they get to Google?
They've gotten to Google.
how did it get to Google?
That's what's on Google. The definition.
How did the
of it.
government cover that up?
Yeah.
Oh, well, with their they did a couple of reports stating that it was, a mogul balloon, and it was funny. In one of the reports, they even said that what the people had seen out there were crash test dummies, which is really kind of a joke because in 1947 there weren't any crash test dummies. That didn't come out into the earlier 50s, and
Wow.
and a mogul balloon, the contraption, the material used to it, what used to make what they would say was a secret at that time, were common man-made material that my grandfather would have known what he was seeing. I mean, like my dad would always say, "Is a balloon, is a balloon, is a balloon." It doesn't really matter where you find it,
Oh, absolutely. That's what we were thinking. I mean, the Men in Black have got, and we're serious about this because we've been on for, well, be 10 years next year. And we've had Stephen Bassett, friend of yours, on the show. A lot of the guys, Nick Pope, all the guys that have been involved in the citizen hearing, and you yourself. What year did you go with the citizens hearing to Washington?
That was in 2013 when we went to talk to Steve Bassett. It was funny. I had actually contacted him because my brother had contacted me saying, "Hey, there's this guy named Steve Bassett, and he's holding this hearing in Washington, D.C. I'm like, "Wow, that sounds great." And he goes, "I think Dad's going to be doing it." So I talked to Dad a little bit about it, and I looked it up online, and I wrote Steve, and I said, "Great, good for you. I'm so glad somebody's doing this. It's wonderful to have some, a Congress people and a senator come and listen to, some stories that have happened to, a lot of military people." And he responded back to my email and said, "How would you feel about speaking on the panel?" I'm like, "Dope. Okay. All right. Okay. You know what? I guess I'll do it. I've never talked to anybody publicly really about it, besides, friends and family and everything. I've never gone in front of a bunch of people and talked about it."
Right.
And so he convinced me into doing it. And you know what? It was one of the best things I could have done because, but now with my father gone, and my brother and I are really trying to just keep the word going out there and say, "Hey, people, something did happen out there and you need to know."
Well, your grandfather being one of the first at the scene of the crash and bringing home, and a lot of people know the story, the materials that were brought home, the family reports that were incredible. Your father got to hold it. Clearly not of this planet is what they were saying, the eyewitnesses.
Yes.
Does that has to be aggravating when the United States government comes out against one of its own heroes, workers for the military, comes out and says, "Oh, you're wrong." I mean, how does your family, how have you guys dealt with that? And have you taken much heat from your beliefs in what you did find that day?
Well, for me, it's actually to be, for me, it's made me very angry. It's because, especially now that my father has passed, I thought, I don't know, I was really hoping beyond hopes that with the Stephen Bassett's hearings and stuff that maybe it would have shifted the paradigm a little bit into people thinking, hey, maybe let's step back and take a look at this and let's hear about what these people are telling us. And, we need to know what's going on inside of our own government too. So for that part of it, it's made me really angry because I thought it was going to be told before my father passed away. My grandfather and both my father were, military men, and he was just doing his job. It's like, what I'm going to do what I'm told, especially back in that era. You didn't go against what the government, military said. You said, "Yes, sir," and "How high do you want me to jump, sir? I'll do whatever you want me to do, sir."
Right.
So that was, especially back then, that was the attitude that they had. And, I respect my grandfather for that. He was loyal to the military and to his, the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't even imagine. I mean, we're going to get into how you had the telescope in the backyard and everything, but growing up with your grandfather and your father, let's just go back to the beginning. I mean, how was it? A little Denice growing up with these two extraordinary men that seen this extraordinary happening. What were the stories? Some of the stories that nobody else has heard.
Well, let me see. I mean, I kind of said a lot of them. I'm not sure what people have heard or not heard, but when we were growing up in like the early 70s, my father was just absolutely fascinated with astronomy, and we just took that as that's just who he was, didn't really think anything about it. I mean, I was only like probably 7 or 8 years old at that point, and Dad just loved to read his astronomy magazines. But then he became a little bit more and more obsessed with it, I guess you could say. He decided to build his own telescope, where he literally hand dug with our neighbors this room underground, this big room, and then he cemented all the walls up, and he put literally a big silver dome on it, and then this huge telescope inside that he almost, I would say, almost created one of the first computers that helped to rotate telescopes. My father was really smart. He missed his calling, but
Right.
anyway, so I remember we would take that mirror and we would be polishing it for hours and hours and hours, and then finally it was all done, and the dome rotated on the top of it, and we could see. We were in Montana, so the skies were absolutely amazing, and we'd have my school children, classmates would come over and take a look at the telescope, and my dad would say to us, not with everybody else around, just as family members, he would be like, when you're looking up there, you never know, somebody could be looking back at you. Right. And, just dropping little things like that. And it's like, so I never ever had any other opinion than there is life out there. I haven't known anything other than that. So I guess for me, when people would say, how do you know that there's there is something out there? It's just like, well, how could there not be? I don't understand that. And that's how my father brought us up. And he really kept our eyes open, and it was a really wonderful gift that he gave all of his children.
Right.
Now, that you're saying you've grown up with this feeling that you've always known there's life out there. That's what were shown. It was what you've grown to, not just grown to believe, but it's a part of your whole belief system now. So
yeah, I can't imagine that somebody would say that it's impossible that there's not life out there. That would just, to me, seem more impossible than having life out there.
With the reports that people put out there
Hello?
Yeah,
I'm so sorry, you're cutting.
He's cutting out, Denise. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah. Nathan, are you okay there, bud?
I don't know, Sean. I don't know why it's cutting out.
We can hear you now.
Okay. I was just saying, do you think that with there's so many reports out there of people saying that they've seen UFOs, but those get swept under the rug. Do you think that those other reports are cover-ups?
I guess, there's of course, there has to always be that possibility. I mean, I don't know why I don't know why they want to cover this up so much. It's mind-boggling to me. The only thing, yes, there is probably maybe some military aspect to it, that if they learn something from it, they don't want to let our enemies know about it, I suppose. But, I think as all humans of this world, we have the right to know if we've been visited before. I don't think that, and I don't think it'll, in this day and age, I don't think it's going to become too much of a shock to the people that we have been. Yeah. I think it's being more and more accepted with the more and more reports that are coming out about how all of these exoplanets that they're finding that could contain life and have water on them. I think it's going to be, one day we're going to be looking back on this and saying, wow, I can't believe that they didn't think that there was life out there.
Right. Well, everybody, Denise, everybody knows the amazing pictures from when your grandfather's holding the materials with your father, and it looks like sheets of tinfoil. But can you describe what your grandfather and your dad talked about, what it felt like to hold, and the markings that were on it?
Yes, I'm going to go by the description of the one that my father says, just because I've heard it a lot more from him than I did from my grandfather, because obviously I was exposed to my father a lot more.
Right.
He said that the material, the tinfoil material, was super light. It was almost like as light as a feather, I guess you could say. And if you were to drop it, it would like float down. It wouldn't just like fall straight down to the ground. And it was really strong. Now, he didn't test out the strength on it. My grandfather did, and he had said that they took a sledgehammer to it, and they tried to burn it, and none of that could happen. And my father did not see the crumpling of the material. It would flatten out, and all the creases would be gone. My grandfather did see that. The one piece that my father really found fascinating was what he would call the I-beam. And it had engraved on the inside of these like purplish, metallic-y, pinky hue kind of look to it. And when you would hold it up to the light, I guess that's what happened. He'd held it up over his shoulder when he brought it to the house that night, my grandfather. He could see it like glinting off of that, and that's when he showed my grandfather and my grandmother that what he was looking at, and they all saw that. They tried to put pieces of the material together like as a puzzle when my grandfather had it all spread out on the floor. But it was just too much stuff. It just, he had stuff there, he had stuff in his car, he had stuff in his in a box, so they weren't ever be able to do that. I know they were looking a lot for anything that would look like any vacuums, any kind of wires, kind of like electronic components, and they didn't see any of that, which is something that you would have probably seen if it was a Roswell target that would have had some kind of a device on there, some sonar device, because that's what they were up there doing, right. Supposedly measuring waves. And I think that was the I-beam was the thing that really caught his attention. And one of the symbols that he described on it, that he remembered it as a child, was he would always describe it as a seal bouncing a ball on its nose. So it was always like kind of like this truncated triangle with a round ball on it, and the ball wasn't quite touching the triangle portion. He wasn't ever sure if the symbols repeated themselves, but they were just really super small, and there were a lot of them on the inside of that I-beam.
Right.
And the government tried to say that what they were looking at was Scotch tape on a piece of balsa wood. So, so I guess three people right there, and Sheridan Cabot, who was out there, and Mac Brazel, none of them realized that all they were looking at that point was just some Scotch tape and balsa wood.
So if they were cavemen, this would have been acceptable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. But before for our listeners, I'm trying to recreate, that night. I believe your dad in his PJs. Your grandfather comes home. This had just happened. It was late in the evening, right?
Yes.
And he opens.
What happened was, my grandfather had been out there all day with a CIC agent by the name of Sheridan Cabot, who forever denied ever being out there. But then in the final, I think it was called the final Roswell report, he did admit being out there, but he stuck to that it was the mogul balloon that they had found out there, which is really funny because when he said that they found was only like stuff that was 10 foot by 10 foot, yet if you found a mogul balloon, it'd be like thousands of feet long because of all the balloons scattered everywhere. So there's a big contradiction with that. So when he and Sheridan were out there looking at this material, it was getting really late at night, and he said, "Why don't you go on back to the base? I'm going to stick here and try to put more of this in my car." And so he did that, and it was probably around 12 o'clock or so around at night. And the house, my dad's house, was just along the route back to the base. So my grandfather had gone to the house, and before he woke them up, he went into the kitchen, and he had taken one of the boxes and spread out the debris, the material all over the floor. And he went, and then he woke up my grandmother and my father, who were both in their nightgowns and completely sound asleep. And my dad was always like, why are you waking me up in the middle of the night like this? And then when he went into the kitchen, I guess he thought to himself again, he's like, why did you wake me up just to look at a bunch of junk on the floor? And then I guess then my grandfather started to proceed to say, I wanted to show you guys this because this is probably something you're never, ever going to see again in your entire life. And he goes, to me, it looks like it could be pieces from a flying saucer. And it didn't register to my father what that was, because he said at that point he had never heard of what a flying saucer was, which would have been Kenneth Arnold had just come out and I think coined that term like a month earlier, so it was a really pretty new coined word at that point, so he'd never heard of that. So he just, he was looking at it, and they were trying to put it all back together, and he looked at that I-beam and was, obviously really fascinated by it. And then my grandfather's, well, I got to go back to the base, so help me clean all of this stuff up. So my dad helped him pack all the stuff back in the box, and they put it back into the car. My dad said that he could recall looking at the trunk of the back of the car, too, was popped open, and it had been filled with all of this material. And then the back seat had also been filled with all of this material, too. And I think there may have been a couple boxes or something like that. And the stuff was just really shredded up, too. So there was a lot of it.
Now, Denice, you said that they didn't find any parts like vacuums or parts, to mechanically make a ship run.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even a spaceship, technically, unless maybe it was an escape pod or...
right.
Was there anything that made this, from his description, make him think that this was the remnants of a flying ship rather than just an escape pod or a satellite or something like that?
Well, I think there was also some other stuff that they found out that they didn't bring back to the house. I know he'd talked about the stuff that looked kind of like fiber optic stuff that I guess was everywhere out there, too. And his thought was that whatever it was that was there had kind of probably exploded in the sky, and it just kind of just shot out. I think of like 3/4 of a mile where all this debris was all just everywhere. And he said they were out there for hours just picking and picking and picking. Now I know they did find a few larger pieces, so I think that's when he attributed it to that, but it wasn't like he had seen, I don't think, he never described actually seeing like a formation of a ship. It was just all these pieces that they found, and it was just the material it was made out of. It was just something that was extraordinary. And then later, too, when the whole thing was kind of coming to an end, when he'd gotten back from seeing General Ramey, he went back to the house and he told my grandfather and my dad, he said, you're going to have to treat this as a non-event. We can't ever talk about this again. I don't want you talking to your friends about it, and that's all you need to know. So up until around 1978 or so, my grandfather and dad didn't have a lot of extensive talks about it. I think they would talk about it here and there and stuff, but just because they were kind of following the military orders, they didn't go around and talk to everybody about it. Now, some family members knew about it, but a lot of people didn't know.
Right. Now, let me ask you something, Denice. And this is so funny because, this has been referred to by USA Today and some articles they ran as Roswell, the most exhausting case in world history, because they say that it's been proven that this is a false happening, which I think is nonsense because, there's two sides to every story. With Roswell, there's 5 billion sides to every story, it seems like, because, a lot of people have different points of view. But with you, my ears are all the way open because you are the closest we can get to the actual man that was involved from start to finish. And, with this, what it says, Project Mogul, the balloon.
Mogul, yeah.
Yeah, Mogul, I'm sorry. Was the balloon near Roswell crashed July 8th, 1947. So the Army comes out and they say that, okay, it's that project. It's down. And then Walter Halt, the public information officer, comes out with a press release and says that the 509th Operations Group had recovered a flying disc. So if they knew it was a down balloon, did they think they were going to relax the American public by saying it was aliens? I don't...
Yeah, that was their first mistake.
Yeah.
And when I think what was happening at that point, there were so many reports after I think Kenneth Arnold of people seeing stuff in the sky that when they saw something, they reported it too, and then their phones went crazy, and it's like, oh my gosh, we have to do something about this. We got to put this to some rest here because we're getting inundated with these calls from literally all over the world. So they had to come out with this cover-up story and say, hey, you know what? Whoops! It wasn't a UFO or a flying saucer that we found. It was really a weather balloon, guys. That's all we found.
And to this day, the military can't get away from that. I don't know if you guys have seen, but they have those posters out everywhere where it has the Batmobile and it says it's all in shadow and it says weather balloon, and then have a UFO ship, weather balloon. Everything's a weather balloon. But
and it's interesting too, since a military style balloon just went down in Pennsylvania. A lot more damage involved in that one coming down.
Yep. There was also our government is totally aware of this too, because I don't. Have you ever heard of Dick D'Amato? Did you ever hear my father talk to him about him?
No.
Well, what happened in the 90s, Dick D'Amato was working, I think he was, he worked for Governor Bill Richardson, I believe, at the time. Or he may have been a former person working for him. Anyway, he had called he found out that my father was going to be in Washington, D.C. at a UFO conference that a prince was holding. And he didn't let it be known, though, who he was when he would call my father. He said, we need to arrange to have you talk. Soon you're in Washington, D.C., we need to talk to you. And I was okay, well, all right. So he goes to Washington, D.C., and he gets a call at the front desk of the hotel and said, there's a gentleman that wants to talk to you. And so he talked to him for a minute. He's like, okay, I want you to meet us over in the Capitol building. So my father went over to the Capitol building, and sure enough, there was this person now. At that point, he still didn't know who he was. He's like, we need to go down, and I'm going to bring you down to a room, and it's basically a room so you can speak freely. So because the walls have ears, and my dad said, well, I'll talk about anything you want. I'm not too worried about anybody hearing what I have to say because everybody's heard what I have to say. Right. And he's like, well, maybe kind of to the gist of, well, maybe I don't want everybody to hear what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time that my father had heard, I think it was, he referred to it as like the black budget. They were trying to find out where a bunch of money was being spent to what sounded like cover up Roswell. And he was trying to find out if my father had any other information that hadn't, that nobody else knew. Right. And so I know they did a lot of research on trying to figure out where that money was going to. And as far as I know, I don't think they ever did.
All right, and that's when you went with Don Schmidt and Tom Carey to General Exxon's retirement home where he was at?
Oh no, that was something different. That was something I did. This was a father that my father had in Washington D.C. in the Capitol building.
I got my questions.
But yes.
Hey,
that was not your question? I'm sorry.
No. I had my questions all backwards there for a second. I had to get back on track. But you have so much. You're such a good guest. I don't even have to ask you questions. I just let you go, man. Hey, but I was going to tell you, now you are a licensed hypnotherapist, but you're not.
Yes, I never practiced. I just wanted to understand it because I knew that it was a good tool to know about with people with trying to recover memories. Yeah. And I thought eventually one day I could maybe use it with my father.
Now, we've had guests on before who were very against using hypnotherapy to speak with people who had UFO experiences, in that they felt that it was leading them to an answer that they wanted. Do you feel that happens in the UFO community?
I can see where that would easily happen. You have to really know what you're doing not to have that happen. And the person that Dr. Hibbler, who's the one that conducted this session, I mean, he was a forensic psychologist. I know he had worked on a lot of high-ranking kidnapping cases, on trying to recover memory, on maybe missing little details as to maybe a license plate, that kind of thing. So this was a person that I knew that, well, I can absolutely trust. And not only that, this was in the 90s. Not only that, my dad had seen, talked about it so much that I don't think that there would be anything that he could put in there as a thought that might lead him into a different direction, because my father never had changed his story, so I didn't see that happening. All I thought was maybe there's some details that could be enhanced and maybe a little tweaked to remember, a little bit more like a better description of one of the symbols or,
Sure.
Something like that. And Dr. Hibbler did this with my father for 3 days, and it was really good. We actually got there was a forensic artist that was there that I'm not sure if she was with the police department or which department she was in, that was able to draw all of the descriptions as my father was under hypnosis. So we got a good drawing of what his descriptions were. Little things he did remember, little things like the flowers on the walls being wallpaper, but not too much really changed. I think just for me, it just really kind of enforced everything.
Right. Now, and I always think, because we always want to go back and look through those people's eyes that seen these incredible things. I know I hear the stories from some people with ghosts and alien sightings, and I'm like, my God, I wish I could just see through your eyes that night when it happened. Especially your dad. Oh, my gosh, can you imagine? Something that big in history.
Yeah.
But mortician Glenn Denice, of course, he talks about 1947, the military called. They wanted the coffins, small coffins. And I just wonder, people like your grandpa and everything, and Roswell being so small back then, after all this started being hid away, put in secrecy, how did these guys, did they meet for morning coffee? And I mean, what do you think they thought? We're like, oh my God, we just got to keep our mouths shut now for the rest of our lives, or what? How did they get along?
I think that's what most of them probably did. If you were in the military, especially.
Right.
Just because you were told what to do and you did it. I mean, you didn't have too many people, coming out and going out against that. Especially, it was such a different generation back there. I mean, the military was just the military, and everybody really respected the military. Not that they don't today, but
right.
It was just, I think, a different feeling and an attitude. And I think once my grandfather started talking about it, more and more people felt a little bit more comfortable about coming out and talking about what their experiences were.
Well, Denice, with the Roswell Legacy, your father's book, he covers most of what happened in here, but he left out some of the stuff that they talk about with, like the radio conversations between, do you know where I'm going with this? The federal government, like Washington, D.C., and the local press, when they called and they told them, hey, cut it off, no radio broadcast, stuff like that. I don't believe that was mentioned in the book. Was there a reason?
No, I think he wanted to talk about what he probably had really heard. He always wanted to, this is what he would always tell people, I'm not a researcher. I've had this experience. I want to share with you what I know.
Right.
So I think he was writing about what he knew about. So if he didn't have really firsthand knowledge about, like, say that press interview where the lady had gotten a Lydia Sleppy or something like that, where she said she was interrupted during a transmission. Well, my dad didn't experience that, firsthand or anything, so I don't think he felt like he was qualified to make a decision on whether or not that really had happened or not. His whole thing was, this is what I experienced,
right,
and this is what my father experienced, and this is what I know. And that's why that's the one thing, he never embellished his story. He always stuck to his same story and never changed. And with some of these other people, they kind of changed throughout the years. And
right. And that's what I loved about your pop's book, The Roswell Legacy, because he stayed true to exactly what this man has been saying since he was a child. I mean, nothing's ever changed, nothing. And people would have to meet your dad and watch the videos of the type of man he was, but I believe this man to be truthful in every way. I know you do. I don't see how men and women who serve our United States government and fight for us on the front lines can see something. I mean, they're all American heroes until you go, wait a second, is that an alien? Oh, they must be whack jobs. I don't get it. I don't know how the American people stand for it. I really don't, Denice. It's an outrage.
Yeah, you kind of want to bury their heads in the sand, I guess. That doesn't make sense to me. It's definitely frustrating. And, well, you know what, hopefully, like, shows like yours and people just continuing on talking about it, maybe one day someone will be listening and decide to like say enough is enough. We need to tell the people what really is going on out there.
Now, Denise, go ahead, Nathan.
I'm just sorry. I just wanted to ask this because it's one of the questions, and I'd like to get these questions from listeners and things like that. They want to know, why did was it your father? This was Jesse
Jesse Marcel Jr.
Jr. So Senior, why did somebody sent in saying, why did he wait 30 years before revealing his part in the UFO events?
Oh, well, the only reason I think that he really did was because Stanton Friedman approached him about it, because what had happened was he was at a school or something like that, and he was waiting for a reporter to come in and do an interview, and he hadn't talked, and this guy didn't show up, and so the person he was waiting in there with is like, hey, have you ever heard of this guy named Jesse Marcel? He lives down in Houma, Louisiana, which is not too far where Stanton was, I think, at that time. And he's like, no, I've never heard of this person. He goes, yeah. He goes, well, he's an old ham radio buddy of mine, and we got to talking, I guess, about UFOs, and he mentioned one day that he had seen one. And so Stanton said, okay, so he did a little bit more research and tracked down my grandfather, and I got to realize this was probably 1977, 78, right around at that time when he was researching, just trying to find him. There wasn't an internet. We had the white pages. Yeah. So he found him and he, got him on the phone, and he said, is this true? Was there a UFO, a flying saucer? And that's when my grandfather said, yes, there was. And Stanton did some more research and found the newspaper article, and it's like, oh my gosh, what do you know? There really was this event that took place back there. And so then he went down, interviewed my grandfather, and the rest is history.
So if Stanton had not asked him to reveal this information, your grandfather probably would have never released it. I
think that probably would have been the case. I mean, unless, maybe later on in life, my dad may have decided himself to maybe talk about it. But I think that, odds are it probably wouldn't have really come out that way. I think it eventually would have, but it wouldn't have probably happened as soon as it did.
Well, see, in my opinion, that makes a better case for an honest report on what's going on, because a lot of people nowadays, they have a ghost or whatever. It's all over the place within seconds, and oh, by the way, you can get a ticket for $10. This man waited 30 plus years when approached by a notable astrophysicist to
nuclear physicist.
Oh, I'm sorry, nuclear physicist. We've had Stanton on several times. He's going to kill us. To approach him, and he said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I did see something. If you want my help, here I am." But wow. And Denise, I know we're running out of time, and I am so sorry we're keeping you over. I have to ask you, because the secrecy surrounding Roswell, you've been sharing it. You're carrying on your father's legacy by telling others what really happened, what he experienced. You said before on this show, that we're not alone in this universe. If we're not, Dr. David Jacobs from Temple University, I know you know him. He came on our show. He talked about the alien-human hybrids. He says, also, we're not alone in the universe. And the question to him from us was, do we need to be worried? And he says, absolutely. What do you think? Do we need to be worried about these others that travel around our planet?
Wow, that's a good question, because, I've heard both answers. Stephen Hawking, I think at one point said, if there really is something like that, we need to be worried. I think that, I don't know, I hope we don't have to be worried. I think that if they wanted to have really done something, they could have easily done something by now. And we're all still here. I mean, nothing's bad happened.
Right.
So I really have to believe, hopefully that they've evolved beyond that warlike tendency of which we're all still basically in. I mean, we're like little children compared to these visitors. And I mean, certainly if they wanted to do something, they could, and it'd be very hard to do anything against it, considering they'd be so much more evolved. But I would have to believe that in the same token, if they are that evolved, that hopefully they'll just respect us and maybe just observe us as we would probably want to do if we found an alien life form, at another planet. We'd go and want to observe it. We wouldn't want to go out and hopefully we wouldn't want to go out and harm it.
Right.
Yeah, think about it. Think about it.
Yeah. Well, I tell
It
you,
depends on who. It depends on who finds it. Really.
And then that's true too. I mean, absolutely.
We have this idea that all aliens, are working together. Yeah.
Oh no, you got to figure that it's such an immense universe out there. There's got to be a whole bunch of different kinds of life forms out there, not just a couple, but.
Denice, I have actually a two-part question, and this is it for me because I know we've kept you 12 minutes past. Nathan, this would be it. So, sis, my question is, you've been so involved with the secrecy and the shedding of the light. At any time, this is the first part, have you been scared for your safety? We talk about Men in Black, things of that nature. And while you were working the circuit, did you ever meet Mr. Phil Snyder or anybody in the ufology community that has mysteriously disappeared from our existence like Phil did? And what do you think about those happenings?
Well, first off, no, I've never met anybody that's disappeared. But that was a very, very highly suspicious, that's for sure. I'm so sorry. What was the first part of your question?
Do you ever worry? Because you're at the heart. You have
do I ever
finger
worry?
on the pulse here. Yeah. About your safety.
The only thing that worries me more than anything is somebody because I've had this happen where sometimes, sometimes this field attracts some people that aren't very healthy, and they'll kind of stalk you.
Right.
I've had that happen, but other than that, I'm not too worried about the government. I mean, it's just the same thing with my father. I don't think he was worried about it either because he'd been talking about it so long that if anything weird were to happen, I think it'd be kind of a little bit obvious. So I think that kind of it makes us safer almost.
Right. Now, do you think these things happen though? In your honest opinion, do you think the government gets involved in some of these ufology claims where the people come forward and then end up dead? Is it a possibility?
I think you know what? I'm not going to say that there's not. I think, yes, there is always that possibility. As far as taking somebody's life, I mean, I don't know. I pray to God that that's not the case.
Right.
But if they, I don't know. That's a really hard question to answer. I know that they're involved. The government's definitely involved in a lot of these things because they don't want people to find out about it.
Right.
But I don't know to what extent they would go.
See, that's a cover-up answer, Nathan. It's Denice. We got to get her. Oh, that's terrible.
Here's my two-part question, Sean. One, I've always had this question lying in the back of my mind and wanted to know if it's true, and if so, do you know why? Did the U.S. government order 2 or more, I'm not sure, I've always heard 2, child-sized coffins from a local mortuary after the crash at Roswell? Do you know anything about that?
Are you asking me that?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I've heard about that, the same stories that you've heard. My grandfather didn't talk about them. My father didn't talk about them. My grandfather had always said that he didn't see any, as he would call it, little green men or anything like that. But, if he did, maybe that's something he didn't want to share with my father. I don't know. I mean, there is always that possibility with everything that was going on around there that maybe that was there. I know that I think there was more to the story than what he was even telling. That I do believe. I think he knew more.
The second part of my question is, having been to Roswell, why does everything close at 5 o'clock?
Because it's so hot out there.
Yeah.
I went to Roswell. I show up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've got one day off. I'm driving through New Mexico, and I show up at 4 o'clock, and everything is closing. And within an hour, I left town because everything except the Walmart was closed.
Oh, that's right. I've only been down there during the festival time, so I didn't everything when I was there stayed open kind of late.
Yeah, that money. Now, Denice, I got the one. I know I keep saying one last question, but I swear this is it.
That's okay.
The little green men and the coffins and all this stuff we talk about. Your grandfather was one of the first on the scene. So, if there was, in fact, a downed craft, it would lead most people to believe there had to be somebody flying it, unless they're very advanced. like Fly the Navigator thing, and the actual ship was the alien. But Disney reference. Was there people there before your grandfather? Was that a possibility that these bodies were taken away before he got there?
I don't think at the site that he was at.
Okay.
Now, there's supposedly more than one site. I think that where my grandfather went to, that was the first that him and Sheridan were the first people besides Mac to go out on that portion of the crash. I mean, it could have, I always, they say that there was bodies out there, and there probably were, but there is always I guess you could always say that maybe this thing that came down was also, it could have been a probe. It could have been something that exploded in the sky and came down.
This is true. Well, Denice, what is next for Denice Marcel? Where do we go? What's coming up next for you?
Well, I'm just starting to help out with MUFON Los Angeles. I became the state section director for Los Angeles, and I'm learning my way through that, and going to be starting hopefully in a few months having some monthly meetings, and because MUFON's thing is all about education, and they've got a really good database system now that people can report to for, if they see a UFO, and an investigator always follows up with them and makes sure that they have all the information. And so what it does is it makes a really good cross-reference for researchers out there to know if, let's say, if they had a report, if anything else was reported that same night that somebody reported to them.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're going to close out the show. We're going to ask you to stay on the line for just 1 second. Can you stay on?
Sure. Absolutely.
Nathan, any more questions? I think he cut out again on us, Denice.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I'm having some internet problems on this side, and I just wanted to make sure Denice stayed on the line. So Sean was asking all the right questions, and whenever my little bars went up in signal there, and I knew I was getting the signal in, I tried to get a question in. But no, Sean hit all the right questions, and I got to ask the ones that the fans wanted to know. So I'm feeling good. And Sean, I'd just like to remind all our listeners that there are only 364 more days till Halloween.
Okay, guys. Denice Marcel, you are an amazing person, and long live you, ma'am, because you are out there putting some light on the truth of this, and you're the one now. So keep it up, okay?
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. This was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, Denice.
Anytime,
thank you so much.
Hang on the line 1 second. Okay, Nathan, we're going to close out the show, buddy.
Okay, sir.
Yes, absolutely. Special thanks to all our homes, all our sponsors, Stitcher, Smart Radio, Planet Paranormal, Action Audio Apps. Hey, are you guys listening? They want to know, so check them out at actionaudioapps.com. Midnight Syndicate Free Music Archives, thanks for the tunes. From the haunted back roads of America, this has been another G&D exclusive interview. Don't go changing America. We won't. Demon Hunter.
Because we love you.
Night, guys.